Furthermore, we're happy to support the AEM user group. If you're not aware, today is the launch of AEM 6.2. Is everybody aware of that? Hear about it? No. Okay. The other thing too that I should let you guys know is how many folks in the group are certified on AEM? Show me. We have a certification program in place. You can get certified on being a salesperson, a business practitioner, so for this audience, to be primarily a developer or I highly encourage you to get certified on it. Validate some of the work that you're already doing. The second is that makes you more employable in the market. It's very hot these days, and a lot of companies are very interested. Without further ado, we've got a dedicated path. AEM is going to be speaking about e-commerce, but we're going to start first with chatting a little bit about what is AEM 6.2. We have Sethu, Iyer, who is our principal solution architect for Adobe, who specializes on the partner side, and he will be spending about the next 30 minutes giving you an overview. And a couple of housekeeping things that you guys should know. The restroom is right over there. If you need, obviously, beer, wine is over there as well. And if you need water or coffee, you can do that area over to the left. So, enjoy.
Perfect. Thank you, Derek. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the user group meeting. I think we are doing this maybe after a gap of around 7 months or even beyond that, right? So glad it's getting back on track and glad to see some faces I recognize and some new faces as well, so which means the team is kind of exciting. So as Derek mentioned, my name is Sethu Iyer. I am an architect with the Partner and Alliances team. So my role here is kind of at least threefold. Number one is it's part evangelism, so working with partners to help them understand the Adobe ecosystem when it comes to the Adobe Marketing Cloud. And more so, I focus on the Adobe Experience Manager side in conjunction with Analytics, Target, Audience Manager, and the other components of the cloud. Secondly, I also work with most of you. Some of you I might have worked with in maybe leading up to an engagement, like the pre-sales process, or maybe post-engagement, you might have a certain question that comes up in terms of some features, some functionality that we need to maybe enable with an AEM or extend some functionality, so we do it on the field, or maybe take those questions, which comes to the third role, taking those questions back into product management and incorporating them into AEM. So I have about 30 minutes to go through a high-level overview of what is new in AEM 6.2. And in 30 minutes, honestly, I will not be able to do any justice to what's new in there. It's going to be rapid fire, but I'm going to be hanging around here. If any specific questions, deeper dive into those areas, feel free to just stop by and I'll try and answer them as much as I can. And by the way, the audio here is, I thought I'll be getting a conference line, and I don't have a conference line. There are a few people dialing in via GoToMeeting as well. We would like connect, but the user group meeting decides what they want to use. So that is why you see the headphones up here. So at a high level, we're going to go through what is new in AEM 6.2. So most of you would know Adobe for the past 25 years has been providing various tools and technologies to create this engaging consumer experiences. And when you talk about experience, rather than going deep into some of the tools like Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, that has been the heritage of where Adobe came in from. And for the 25 years, we say we have been creating this experience pretty deep, pretty extensive, right, in terms of what we do. So with AEM as well, we went back and asked, what exactly defines consumer experience, right? So we talk about Adobe Experience Manager, and what are the three key things that enable that experience to stand out? And the three things that stood out are first and foremost, 25% of the people kind of conveyed to us is the content should be personalized and relevant. And personalization itself is a topic that we can talk about, a lot of features around it, but personalized and relevant content. Second thing is, from a content consumption standpoint, the content should be valuable. It should make some sense, right? And third thing is, the content should be easy to understand. So these are the three things that stood out from the theme of what you mean by an engaging consumer experience. So going deeper into that, we kind of build our themes around the three key functionalities that stand out. but also tying this to three pillars of the digital experience platform, which we'll be going into as well as a part of this. So at a high level, for those of you who are not familiar with AEM, I know most of you are certified and people already know AEM, but for those of you who are not familiar with it, there are 5 key areas of AEM the 5 key areas or features of AEM that stand out. Starting with sites that are used to create those engaging web experiences and on-screen experiences, transcending from web to on-premise or point-of-sale kiosks, screens, and things of that nature. Assets, a single source of truth for anything that you manage from an asset standpoint. Images, videos, documents, and things of that nature. Communities simplifies the creation and optimization of the customer experiences. And for lack of a better term, think of this like your Facebook behind the firewall or LinkedIn behind the firewall, where you can stand up a community and stand up the community with application features like blogs, wikis, horizontal functions like ratings and comments and things of that nature. Next to that is forms, and that comes in from Adobe's heritage on the PDF side. So we took that entire life cycle, and some of you might be familiar with it, and embedded that within the core AEM services that came as Adobe. ADEP is one part of it. ADEP is more of a provisioning part of it, but the larger product set came from Lifecycle. Lifecycle was the process that people used to create those engaging forms, PDF forms, embed those data into any data store of your choice, and also create a document of record, or create something like maybe, like you may be getting some correspondence from your insurance companies. It does correspondence management and things of that nature. So that's what forms does. But we're going deeper into this as a part of this presentation. And finally, mobile. So mobile again had multiple manifestations within Adobe. So the last 6 months before AEM's release, we combined, I don't know, any of you familiar with DPS here? Adobe had a feature called Digital Publishing Suite that was used for content creation and publishing through the InDesign platform. So you could use InDesign for creating, composing the page, and pushing out content such as maybe a Newsweek magazine or a tablet device and things of that nature. On the other hand, AEM also provided the capability to the Cordova framework to create mobile applications that could be compiled for any OSs, such as iOS or maybe Android or maybe Microsoft, and then have them delivered to relevant stores. But while doing so, the content that goes into the application was kind of pushed over the air. So you don't need to have a frequent app update on a mobile device. That's where that came in from. But with the AEM 6.2 release and with the Marketing Cloud convergence, the DPS and the former AEM apps, as it is known as, has been combined to be something known as AEM Mobile. So that's how it came together. Single platform for creating, managing, and distributing the mobile apps and the content that goes within those apps. So a quick snapshot, I can provide you with the slides. These are some of the key features that we built in to those 5 key pillars of AEM. So on the sides, you have, there was no template editor before from an end user standpoint. So now business users can actually create those templates, like drag and drop and create a template, and then use the template as a springboard to create a content instances. It's very distinctly different from the content editing experience where a designer had to create this template experience. Now a business user, given the components, can drag and drop and create the template within the editor itself. We have some cool targeting features built into AEM, and that came through an evolution with 5.6.1 to 6.0. For those of you familiar with the earlier releases of the product, right? 5.6.1 to 6.0 to now 6.2. Now we're going to reach experience targeting available through AEM 6.2. We have done some enhancements on the screen side, enhanced search. On the asset side, we have been able to incorporate something in the smart search. So if you put in an image, based on previously loaded images with appropriate metadata, it can do a bitmap recognition of the image and apply the tags automatically to that image. So it's basically image recognition, like facial recognition and things of that nature. Fluid content comes in content fragments. I'll be going into this in little detail in the part of the presentation. But think of this as content fragments, not just a page that you could create before. Now, fragments can be an independent component that can exist within AEM, and you can use the component in the context of page 1, or a variation of the component in the context of a mobile application, or another variation of the component, let's say, in the context of page 2. So you're kind of separating a very clear separation of content from its presentation. And that's huge, I would say. We had the article feature within AEM before, so this is a new addition within AEM. Brand portal, I can go to each one of these. I think we have got a limitation of 30 minutes, but I have some screenshot that kind of describes what this means. I'll be going through this as a part of the presentation here. Some of the other key things I want to bring up here is brand portal. So many of you might be working with multiple agencies, right? So you're working, one of you might be a developer or maybe working on the administration aspects of AEM, but there might be a marketing team that kind of manages the assets. So the marketing team might be working with a freelance agency or a boutique agency that does maybe some classically beautiful videos. Now, how do you enable that agency to download those videos or the images, but at the same time work with the marketing team here, when the marketing team works with the in-house consultants and developers to bring everything together from a collaborative process perspective, right? So you have something known as a brand portal, where the portal can enable distribution of assets, subsection of the assets, maybe a folder, maybe an aggregation of assets or collection, and enable that agency to go in and access the assets. So they get just a limited view of AEM, right? So that's one of the key things I want to point out here. Yeah. Sure.
Is that a two-way street for agency personnel? They do edit to the video assets?
Classic question. Yes, absolutely. So that actually ties in even to the Creative Cloud. If the agency needs to make a change, the agency has subscription to Creative Cloud, they can issue a notification to the creative designer who might download the asset in Photoshop, maybe any of the editing tools, make a change. Changed within that asset. Sure. Another quick thing is, how many of you are familiar with AEM forms? Cool, quite a few actually. Life cycle. The life copy is a feature. Life cycle is as a product that is behind.
What Adobe does is my company will be pretty enhanced features to our product case. Sometimes people get usually called
standpoint. I'm going to tell him I think I should get away from. And then finally, app experience management, which means the ability to not only create, manage, and publish apps and content within it, but also the ability to consume natively created hybrid apps and use AEM as a framework for managing those apps. So that was some of the latest introductions within 6.2. So going to digital foundation, without going too deep into it, we can just strengthen the entire platform here. So with a deep level of security around hosting into third-party services such as AWS and Amazon S3. But going above that, a digital foundation across the capabilities of AEM. So first and foremost is some of the key features, as I mentioned before, the template editor, or ability for managing multiple sites and targeting content to the sites, where you can take a segment and share it across sites, or take an experience and share that across sites as well, which wasn't there before. Earlier, you could create experiences only for one site. For next site, again, you're going to recreate the same experience, right? So the experience in itself is something that can be shared across sites. But alongside that, integration into target and analytics or audience manager, take those audience segments and use that in the context of personalization, or push those segments into target and create those test scenarios like A/B testing, multivariate testing. Next is marketing automation, especially when it comes to campaign. We created content. How do I take this content and use that in the context of campaign? Campaign could be an email campaign, could be a in-app mobile push coming into the mobile framework, right? So those things are kind of made very easy within the 6.4 release. And then finally, from an experience insight standpoint, again, integration with campaign and analytics, and some deep reporting within AEM itself. So I don't need to go into analytics to get the reporting. As a content author, when I'm creating content or creating a digital asset, I can get the insights right next to the asset itself. Very valuable for a content author as compared to going back, making 2 hops into analytics and finding the same data. So this data now gets pushed into AEM to enhance the authoring experience from a content author or a marketeer's perspective.
Are you saying this thing is there? This is black and we're getting analytics
yes.
to show it to the app.
Exactly. Where the asset has been used, how many times the asset has been viewed, download, number of times it's been downloaded, or the consumption pattern over a mobile as compared to your desktop. So all those details comes into the insights feature within AEM. Okay. Oh, this is more on the management side. On the download event, on the consumer side, is distinctly different. What I'm talking about is from an authoring standpoint, I need to, exactly. But when it comes to the publishing side, then it's a different thing because you need to have that download or who touch the content coming into the analytics dashboard. They're 2 distinct functions, but that content can come back into authoring with some extensions if you need to, but they're primarily 2 different use cases. So these are some screenshots again, might not go deep into it. I wish I could have shown you a demo of the product, but I can certainly after this meeting as maybe as a sidebar conversation, I can certainly show that. So this is a quick template editor where you can have a template structure can be laid out, and a business user can actually do the layouting of the template itself. So I can say, okay, here comes the header, here comes the navigation components, here comes the content area. Let me drag and drop this and create a template. Now that template can now be used for the content author to ingest the other elements within that template components. So some of you are familiar with the parsers components, right? I can drag and drop an image, drag and drop a text within the template itself. So that's how the template editor lets. It actually automates a lot of things from the business user standpoint. Classic UI, we're going to retire this. So yeah, the touch UI, yeah, exactly. So yeah, many features of classic UI is going to be, yeah. So the touch UI comes on a new framework and yeah, new set of what is it, cyclic code. I'll get into that a little later, but yeah. Content is a creation, management, and publishing is a continuous process. And more so, variation of content creation and management and publishing is a continuous process. What I mean by that, so I might have a content that I create today for maybe, let's say, the English-speaking audience. Maybe tomorrow I need to create a variation of that for the French-speaking audience. Day 3, the English-speaking audience content changes, or I'm planning to change maybe 3 weeks later. Maybe following 4 weeks, the French content would change again. And if you look into the whole thing, it started off with one content item, but now it's branching into multiple trees. So that's where the concept of launches comes in. So launches addresses the need for content publishers to take multiple variations of the content and put them through a separate workflow. And each of these could be branching at different situations and different times, but you can tie them back to the base content where they came in. That's where you can have the continuous launches that happen. And these launches can be aggregated from multiple pages at the site level, or can go down to individual piece of content. Very key feature. This was kind of some of the largest business organizations asked us for this kind of requirement. Yeah. Some of the things like translation is enhanced in this. So we had launches there, and we could do launches, but again, the translation has to be pre-done. But you can predefine some of the translations beforehand, and then have them published out the launch process. So launches is a concept started with 6.0 and with the package addition, and then 6.1 is strengthened, and 6.2 is kind of becoming more prevalent as a part of the core product. Next is basically multi-site support for targeted content, and this comes into the experience targeting that you could do. So earlier, if you realize from AEM standpoint, somebody had to create, those of you familiar with 561, right? So to create the segments and then experiences, then create the variations of content you want to deliver, but again, target connected to the back end. And then come with 6.0, we had some bit of experience targeting for each component. But that was, again, those experiences limited to the page you're working with. I could not take that experience and say from page 1 and to put the same experience on page 6 for the same segment for the same campaign, right? But now you can share this. You can have an inheritance level setup for the campaigns. So I can say site 1, use this inheritance layer, but I can use the same experience going to site 2. Very useful when somebody transcends from, let's say, an e-commerce retail kind of a scenario, from you have multiple storefronts, one storefront of the storefront, so you want to maintain that same personalization across the storefronts. So that was kind of high level on the digital foundation. Content marketing is pretty deep. I'm going to jump through this. We're going to talk everything about content velocity. So some of the things that came to our research is many companies under huge pressure to create content constantly. And it's basically, if a product is about to be launched and your web experience or consumer experience is a limiting factor, there's a huge impact from a business standpoint. So companies under pressure to create the content and push it out faster, right? There's a huge impact on content velocity. Second, in conjunction, content velocity is a proliferation of channels. I don't need to explain. You see right around here. Every billboard here has content that comes into the source. Every digital device has some content coming from the source. How do you manage the proliferation of this content explosion, but have some sense from a workflow and manageability standpoint, right? And third thing is, how do you make it personalizable? So there is one, I think, next to Sephora. If you take your iPhone and walk through it, the billboard actually changes to see who you are if you're a part of the app. Now expand on that. Many of you might have seen use cases. If I walk into maybe a point of sale like a Gap store, if I look into jeans, to walk into a store, I want to get that kind of an experience there, right? So I want the experience to transcend beyond the device I'm working with. And that's where it comes in from personalized content, right? So those are some of the things that we built into the digital foundation. Are we there yet? Maybe to some extent, but we're getting there now. So that is the basis foundation of personalized content across touchpoints. Sure.
Your polling sample, were these all current AEM customers and users, and how large was what
Oh, could you repeat the question?
the polling data, you said 85%.
Yeah.
So how large a sample and where the current AEM usage versus across?
Yeah, I can come back to the specifics of the question, but I don't know. We have a group, similar user group. We have what do you call that as the customer advisory board?
We also,
Yeah.
I think, if you go back to the slide,
Yeah.
that one was done by a third party. Bottom, easily said it, but it's done through third party research for like for a third party.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not an easy.
This is what
The challenge is
It's the challenge that every day is a challenge.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah. The earlier one came from e-consultancy, and I wasn't sure about the source of this one. So going here, from a content marketing and velocity standpoint, we have the whole flow from content creation and curation to management, the smart search and smart tagging, as I mentioned before, the content composition and then delivery, right? And then this comes into the convergence of the creative and the marketing cloud. And some of the key components that we did here, I talked about content fragment. So that is how fluid content comes in. Content can be independent of the page where it's to be displayed, can be independent of the site, independent of the device, independent of the variation. It should reside as a floating content. And that wasn't there up until 6.1. So content fragment, that came as an article concept, which was there in the form of DPS, but now DPS has become a part of AEM Mobile, so came in content fragment. So I can create a content fragment and think of this in use cases like healthcare or let's say a payer who might be having, let's say, common language for a benefit information. And I might have like 50 states. Each state might have a variation of the language. So when I come in from New York as compared to California, the content has to change. The base content is the same, but there may be some minor variation that is applicable for the state. The content can reside by itself. I can assemble it at runtime and create that experience with people, depending on where they're coming in. So that's where the content fragment comes in. And content fragments can include text variation, image collections. They can apply metadata like digital assets into content fragments. Smart image search, as I mentioned before, right? So I upload an image. We might have something similar to this in a bitmap matching. So automatically it comes and say it identifies somebody as a human being. So you got people, it identifies a theme, looks like summertime, identifies a landscape behind it and say it's a landscape. So this smart tagging actually, when you ingest an image, it automatically picks up the metadata and creates and uploads the metadata for you. You can, of course, enrich it the way you want. It's very helpful from a metadata standpoint. You can definitely enhance the tags. So that tags are going to come in as a basic feature to enable smart tagging. But at the end of the day, that might be relevant from a different perspective. So that tags might not be applicable. You can go and delete those tags or enrich it to your own tag that comes from a PIM database, right? Yeah. Yeah. But the auto that is true. And we haven't gone there yet, that this comes into the convergence of the roadmap of Adobe stock in conjunction with AEM. So we have some prototypes built into it, but in the future, that's what you're going to see. So when stock comes in with prototypes with the AEM, right, the smart tagging is now built in with that. Asset usage, as I mentioned here before, right? So in terms of an asset from an admin standpoint, I can see, okay, how many impressions or click growths came in. This comes in from the analytics engine. But at the same time, I can see, okay, what are the top pages that led to the impressions and how many times it's been used, and impressions for top pages. And so you can configure this reporting basically. So this gives you this kind of insights from an asset standpoint. Further down, I mentioned about brand portal. Brand portal, as I mentioned before, becomes a two-way communication between the owner of a brand from a third-party agency standpoint and the assets managed and delivered to the third-party agency. Search has gone far beyond. Earlier, search was confined into when you see image transformation.
There's like a workflow that comes with it.
Yeah. True.
So you just upload one image that you want to have.
Yeah, it does. There are two. Yeah. There is some bit of it, but there are two kind of transformation people talk about. One is when I ingest an image, I want multiple renditions of that image. That is one kind of transformation. Other kind of transformation is I want the image to be transformed in terms of the file type itself. I upload a PNG file, I want an output as JPEG. That's another kind of transformation. The third kind of transformation that happens is when, for videos especially, like using FFmpeg. So I want to have one type of video converted to another type of video. So those things exist, but I can take this offline in case you've got specific problems in image transformation.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. It addresses most of the use cases, but there's something one-off, I can definitely take it offline. Yeah, sure. To search across, you can simply search for content. I will bring up the assets, pages, websites, workflows, whatever is searchable within the system, right? So you don't need to actually point your search to a site or a content item. It's a universal search that comes from top of the search bar. Anybody downloaded and played around with 6.2 here? Anybody is a part of the beta program? Oh. Another key thing is Lucene. It's basically using Lucene as a core search engine. Right? Solar is nothing but one of the implementation of Lucene. Oh, it's again authoring side. It's purely authoring. What I'm talking about is purely an authoring side. Right? This experience is purely an authoring side. If I were to kind of quickly transition, I was some kind of show a demo, but let me quickly go into demo instance so I kind of set it here. So if I were to go in Adobe Experience Manager and say I want to look for a product, I'm going to search for it. I'm not even going to go into sites. I'm going to go and say, let's say fragments. And I'm going to do the search. Oh, my AEM instance might be down here. Oh, I didn't spell it right, obviously. There you go. So Lucene is a core, right? You have implementation services on top of it through AEM. Solar is one of the implementations, like you have got what is Smart, which is another implementation. Many people use Lucene at the back end, and other implementations are nothing but think of this an engine in a car, right? I have an engine which is Lucene. I can use the same engine maybe in a Volkswagen as compared to maybe Honda or maybe something else. So that's the implementation around that engine.
So that in order to do that, you have to do so much implementation.
Go back to the screen, let me see.
I think one thing that about is that so the smart search feature is specific to the authoring environment, it's not for the publishing environment.
Correct. You're right.
So on the publish side, you still have your traditional search capabilities. You have to define your indexes, your shading, all your indexes, and whatnot. So that feature is specific to authoring. So if they add a box, this feature is meant to be used by people on the author. So I think that's content marketers, designers.
It's not for content consumers. So content consumers, I can come with any kind of search.
So add a box, of course, this feature itself having an additional integration with another search.
Correct. Yeah, this is a native feature AEM 6.2.
I think your question is more around, so Lucene and Solar have very similar capabilities. I think the use case for Solar is more around scalability. I think there may be some edge features that
exactly. You use Solar when you want to disable the native search function of AEM. And let's say you got a cluster across instances and the search index is so large, you need to kind of scale that up across multiple servers, right? That's where usually you integrate Solar with AEM. For a typical implementation, the embedded Lucene engine should be good enough with those features to do the search within the system.
And since you did say to the author, it's content at all stages, at all stages of the workflow.
Correct. Definitely. But that being said, again, going back to Solar, right? There are certain advantages and disadvantages using Lucene as compared to Solar. Lucene respects all the ACLs you have on the content item. When you go it and put Solar around it, Solar is something where you need to pass the ACLs, either which could be heavy lifting, or you need to say, you know what, I would rather use Solar from a publishing content standpoint on an end user side, but not on the authoring side. So you can do that. There are certain ways of tuning that. I can take this offline with you. There are many ways of tuning those search queries to make it. Scaling search is not like scaling index. There are again two different mindsets to it. I'll take this offline with you. Let's go deeper into it. So going into this, right? So table the question. Other thing is like there's a desktop app. This came in with 6.1 itself, but again that has been enriched now. So we can use a desktop app and use this as almost a local mount of a drive to access the digital assets and work through it. It's very helpful for creative designers who will not be even touching AEM, but they can pass on security and privileges through that desktop app to work on the creative tools. And that again can tie back to Creative Cloud if you want to be, or can be directly working for third-party tools as well. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, you had a question. Yeah. So that is basically coming in from the Lucene part of it, right? Where it respects the ACL. Your access control rights defined for each of those assets, and that kind of respects it when you implement the search. Navigation browsing, yes, anything that you see on the AEM side, every capability can be enabled or disabled for a specific group based on the roles.
I mean, is it possible to go offline, for example, modify some data and then
yeah, the offline app actually works with offline as well. As a going network kind of has a manifestation rate timestamp, so it kind of maps that and say, oh, here is an edit, let me upload it. Yes. Yeah. But copies again are defined by access privileges, so let me table that. So I don't have it. I'm going to give incorrect answers. Let me table that and come back to you. Well, it's a great question, though. Yeah. Yeah, all that. Yeah. Yeah, this is basically bug fixes, and the two-way synchronization has been made more robust. The security credentials that goes along with the ability to see a content item, right, tied to the AEM security, that has been tightened as well. It's something that was there with the Creative Cloud integrations. I need to come back to the Creative Cloud. So if you have the security privileges tied to Creative Cloud, and I'm a designer who has access to Creative Cloud, it becomes a platform for cross collaboration between my companion app, the Creative Cloud app that I'm working with, and AEM. Sure, yeah, there were some issues with 6.1 that was released. Some, I would say, inconsistencies in terms of synchronization. These are some typical user interfaces. Again, you can quickly create those hotspots and rotating banners with images. Very well to create those merchandising banners or hero images on pages, right? So you can use that, and those images will be shown based on who you are. So if you aggregate 10 images, if they are appropriate for me, only those things will show up and those kind of things from a personalization standpoint.
We are trying to do something like that right now. 6.1.
Okay.
But it's a component. Is that a component?
That's a component, yeah. I don't know if it's backward compatible though, but yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because some of the core libraries change in 6.2 as well. But I can investigate this.
So the interactive banner with the components, is that separate? There's separate components from the standard banner. So you've already got a banner.
Yeah.
Live. Inside, you know, we want to make it interactive. You have to swap out some of the components.
Yeah. It's a new component.
Separate.
Yeah. Exactly, because it ties in some of the features of targeting that wasn't there in the previous banner component.
You currently have a story with 13 straight points right now.
Yeah.
And if I can yank that out of the crafting,
As I said, that's where it works in conjunction with assets as well. So you can create hotspots on those images itself. So let's say I put a nice image of, let's say, somebody wearing ski boots and ski goggles and maybe ski equipment. But then I want to just hover around the ski goggles and buy those. Or maybe ski boots, you can do that with this high-level person, which wasn't available in the banner component. So I don't know if it's an extension or a completely new one, but it's a different component. So going into communities as a feature was there before. Now communities has been integrated with Livefire. Anybody familiar with Livefire? So Livefire actually brings in third-party comments and content, and it provides you the ability to curate them and put that in the context of your AEM community. So for example, I may be working on a brand, let's say a router. I'm just making an example. I spoke to somebody in Verizon here, right? So I may be working on a router or a new product launch there, right? As a part of the product launch, you may have an internal team and maybe a community that is provided only for users of the product. You've got a self-help kind of a feature coming in there. But then there might be a community that exists in Facebook or maybe LinkedIn or maybe a third-party social site that may like or dislike the product, right? But you want to bring this content and curate them in the context of the conversations that happen in the communities feature, right? So Livefire actually helps you curate that content and bring that in. So you got one single window, and the content that you show there is relevant, and this happens automatically based on how you set it up. So things like you can have maybe a media library, or they have different ways of aggregating content. You can do blogs at one side, Facebook comments on the other side. Bring all this together so that it's in context of that conversation that's happening within the page.
So in the previous stuff, we had a demonstration of
Mm-hmm.
but there was no mention of Livefire then.
Yeah. I think the formal announcement was made in Summit. So though we had it, the announcement came up in Summit. That is Livefire. We're not even getting into that. Livefire actually stores those the curation variables that you provide within the MySQL database. All you're providing is those components to plug into the page. So what Livefire does is the two ways aggregating content there, right? So they have the APIs into Facebook, the APIs into LinkedIn. So you say, I want to search for AEM 6.1 event in New York City. I don't know how many of you might have tweeted that or maybe put a Facebook post on that. But for me, as a part of my promotion within Adobe side, I would like to show that in the context of my partner engagement. I put the query. Now, as a part of the query, I can, aggregate all content coming from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, social blogs. But we're doing so, break it down so that, okay, here are some components that show all the images and the videos. Here are all the general comments that comes in. So it provides you those kind of features, which is put in the MySQL. No, we are not hosting it. We just have a partnership with Livefire. Livefire does everything for us. Yeah. Livefire uses MySQL. No, it doesn't use it. No. You can use Mongo database. The distinct, because MySQL is a structured database. Mongo, AEM is all unstructured, right? So it's rendered with PRX or Mongo. It can do both. It's what near real time, but it's asynchronous. Yeah, it's a service. Think of this, a live polling happens something here, and I'm aggregating it and showing it. Right. Exactly. I don't need to publish the pages because that is a component which refreshes itself automatically. Yeah, it fetches on the stuff. And based on the query, etc. So going in here, some of the features, most of you who are familiar with community would know this existed before, but some of the features have been more enhanced. And then as enhanced, there are some bugs earlier in the release of communities, like how do we kind of manage and authoring to publishing and coming back to authoring. So there's certain architectural changes to kind of manage that as well. So that cyclical process of reverse replication can be avoided by putting in a common data store on the publishing side, both for authoring and the publishing environment. So there are some fundamental changes that happened with 6.2. Going down here, so there are some of the out-of-the-box reports which were in there before in terms of the community engagement, things like badging, gamification, and things of that nature, right? So it is there as a part of the 6.2 release now. So those are some of the features that came in more from a content velocity standpoint, where you would see a lot of enriching experiences from an authoring standpoint to manage and release the content and making the content release cycles much faster. So finally getting into the connected experience side, right? So these are the typical ways in which a person researches on a product and buys them, right? It goes to different phases of awareness, to consideration, to purchase, to service, where somebody who bought the product would advocate the product, and then turns into loyalty, right? So content has to go through each of the steps, and you should be able to make that experience seamless as possible using data and content and analytics put together. And the data, obviously, analytics comes in there, right? So some of the things like, how do I push content into digital billboards? Or how do I push content into online ads? And this comes into integration with Media Optimizer with Adobe Experience Manager. Or some of the things like evaluation alternatives, so how do you kind of put variations of content? So this basically is one of the journeys that persons might take, and how we fit an AEM to that kind of an experience is what I kind of talking about. So basically, when you talk about one part of that whole journey, right, where a online presence converts to a physical presence in a retail store, how to bring that together? And that happens through AEM screens. So I might have low Bluetooth energy devices like iBeacons. So when I go and recognize the app, I walk into a store, this device or those kiosks actually change content to reflect who I am, or based on my previous history. Forms, actually. So basically, forms were there before, but now it makes it very easier to put the forms within a mobile application. We had AEM form that adaptive from an HTML standpoint on a browser, but now the forms itself can be embedded into hybrid application. Any example of hybrid application you can think about? Uber is a classic example of hybrid application, because you can use the SDK of the device to call the driver, message the driver, or the content that comes in between is a direct HTML5 push. So likewise, think of the AEM forms or the content into a wrapper. So the AEM mobile framework lets you create the wrapper and publish it out, so I can leverage the SDK of the device. The content that goes in there dynamically changes based on some of the device categories. So for example, from a healthcare standpoint, right, I'm using AEM forms. There's a physician who wants to go in and engage in an encounter with the patient, but he or she might be holding a tablet device. All you need to do is, if you put out their barcode, click on the barcode. So at least 60% of the data gets filled up in the form. Then I can go and fill in my details, and I can do a digital signature, which becomes an objective evidence or a document of record. One click goes into a document repository. So those are some of the things which make interactivity much more easier. Or he or she might interact at some point, close the form, but a resident nurse might come in, who might then take off the conversation from that point onwards. So what happened here? So again, adding document signature to the forms is within the app is another addition, new feature within AEM as well. So going deeper here, so these are some of the features that came in. So I know I took much more than allocated 30 minutes here, right? But a lot of areas to cover. So sorry about that. I think I would have encroached on your time, David. Yeah. So I want to quickly open it up for conversation here. I mean, any questions you might have. And by the way, I want to call out Amit and Deval from Artilab for putting this user group together. So a quick shout out to them in case they're listening on what a GoToMeeting. I always talk about Connect, it's Adobe product, right? So, questions, comments? I know this is a rapid fire session. What's that again? Which feature? Oh, yeah, we have, thanks for bringing it up. So within communities, there's ability for something like a lightweight LMS. So that can basically be used for community-based training. So you can enable videos or maybe training materials on communities, and you can actually gauge who opened the video at what point in time, and did they go through it, did they go and engage in the entire 15-minute video, or did they drop out after 5 minutes? So that becomes an evidence for you for community enablement. It's not a replacement for LMS, but it does things like community sourcing and community enablement from a community center. Great question.
Question about forms.
Mm-hmm.
Based upon access privilege, of course, can a non-technical user access the raw data for reporting, gather a couple thousand people form data and they want to review the data without putting a request into technology or getting an Excel spreadsheet printed out? Is there actually an interactive portal for them to review data?
There is a reporting feature. I wouldn't say that it has, Mr. Friend, that's what you would expect, to be honest with you. It is more geared towards companies that use forms from a compliance standpoint, a regulatory standpoint. So many of those data, if you need to go into the back end and capture it appropriately and then report on it. Can the form data be used to dump data into a SQL Server database outside of CRX? Yeah, we could definitely do that. You can have multiple variations of the form come into, like I might have, at the time of form submit action, I can say pick up distant fields, put them into my relational database, but pick up the entire form, take a PDF rendition of it, and then take another variation of that without the header and the footer for long-term record retention.
Say marketing wants to review, is there an Excel output out of the box?
So you could create that. There are plugins to create Excel output, but somebody has to create that output. Sure.
They don't really need any.
Yeah.
So then they're uploading them. So it's like, are you providing me new permission sets or something like that?
Exactly. That's where it came in, right? So the permission sets are, let's say I am working with Creative Cloud, right? And at the same time, I don't want to go the whole process of putting into Creative Cloud and working on that asset. Right. But the moment I open that asset, I'm going to open Photoshop. In Photoshop, I'm going to know, okay, my credentials are there to access that image and work through it.
Okay. So like access to the Creative Cloud allows you to upload it to tab?
Yes. Exactly. But I need to table that because I'm myself not very familiar with that with the 6.2 release. But that was intent behind strengthening that companion app.
Okay. Makes sense because don't want too many people to use the server just because they want to upload images.
Definitely. Yeah.
So rather they will drag and drop into their folder like offline.
Yeah. Definitely. And there is a service within AEM itself. I don't know if you've seen. It's a share to cloud, and share to marketing cloud or share to Creative Cloud. So the asset itself. I don't know if you've seen that. And that was there in 6.1 itself. If you take an asset, let's say go to one of the asset libraries, pick up something here. Let's say take this asset here, right? If I take this asset and what do I do here now? No, I want to share. I don't know why it's not coming up here. There was a feature for share it to the Creative Cloud or share it to the Marketing Cloud. Maybe I'm not navigating this properly at this point, but you can take your asset and share it to the respective clouds. And you,
Greg, I mean, most of these are all evaluating for but one thing that I feel customers is doing into AEM, one challenge is continuous integration. Almost all customers have some kind of a Git flow or continuous integration process. And that kind of code management perspective now with AEM
Mm-hmm.
on the top of using the big learning curve for as an organization in the new guide for distributed model. So my request is if Adobe can provide some kind of direction, these kind of, or I don't know how you can package such a thing, but something in terms of the recommendation for customers to use that helps them a lot because like as partners we go in and we have to get them and
Definitely, and that pain point has come to several other user groups as well. So we have another team, a counterpart to my team. So as I mentioned before, I'm a part of Partner Alliances. There's a team called Partner Experience. So what the Partner Experience team does is it has distilled best practices from all the previous implementations. Things like how do I have the continuous integration that's being done? How do I do code deployments, right? Or how do I do code deployments in the scenario of maybe 3 agencies and 3 partners working together for one customer, right? Which is the usual case these days. So yeah, in those kind of situations, reach out to me or reach out to directories. We'll point you to Partner Experience team, and depending on the specifics of that case, they'll recommend best practices.
we also have a lot of things about we also have the Adobe PS.
Sure. Yeah.
But with an engagement.
The PS is, again, there's a slight difference. PS is meant for engagement with the client.
Right.
Partner Experience team is just engaged with, you are the customer's partner experience. They don't care about the client. They will ensure that you are successful with the best practices. And much unlike me, they're the people who actually test the product and implement the product. So they know much better than what I would from that process standpoint. Mm-hmm.
Is it like you have to develop a brand new component in order to have the feature or an existing component be transformed to get that?
It is a new component called a content fragment component. That is what actually enables you to do that.
I understand. So like, probably like already that might like.
Yeah.
Probably if you want to take advantage of that, it's not possible to put components that are
You can use the same content fragment within that site, yeah?
already developed.
I don't know, this backward compatible in 6.1. In 6.1, the same content fragment is known as article component before.
For it, my website is already posted,
Mm-hmm.
right? .1. Where I didn't use the fragment concept.
Yeah.
Now later that you might update it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like I can use that feature out of the box?
Yeah, you can use it out of the box within the
Like
site.
in my homepage, there is some paragraph section.
Yeah.
Which is there, right? In English file.
Yeah.
So when I'm gathering this title for the user from other countries, I would like to change it to another language by email.
Yeah.
So without maintaining another site, I can do it.
You can do that, exactly. So basically what you enable that content fragment to parses, right? How do you enable the fragment for that page or for the set of pages? The next, and you put that content fragment, let's say, within the page. Let's say 3-column layout, I put in 1 column here, right? And I'm going to go and take this site through a translation process, right? Like automated translation, machine translation, whatever it is, right? But at that endpoint, the content fragment is already changed and you have a version history of it there. But that being said, I can have a separate workflow for managing the content fragment translation, separate from the site translation.
So that's good. So like if I have one site is 10 languages,
Mm-hmm.
from the publishing perspective, so just publish one page, publish across.
That's a different scenario where you're kind of managing 10 sites as one single process in the workflow. That has nothing to do with content fragments.
I have a website which is serving multiple languages.
Mm-hmm.
They're like Spanish, English, Latin.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to make change only one specific language.
Mm-hmm.
So like still maintaining all 3 languages under the same component.
Mm-hmm.
Website is just different dimensions
Yeah.
that shows up based upon the user.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment it opened up on a different site or probably use the user preference for which language he wants to take a look at,
Mm-hmm.
it automatically shows up, right?
Yeah. It does. Yeah.
So technically it means I need not maintain multiple sites.
Technically, you don't maintain the structure, right? Because content fragment at runtime can identify the request parameters and say, what is English, French, or Spanish, and deliver the content. If at all, I've done translation previously for those independent languages.
Probably use it there manually as the translation.
Yeah. So that's where the variation comes in, right? Or I can have multiple translations of the content itself, and let's say another component is variation of the content itself. The same thing now expanded to mobile, expanded to tablet use, right? I'm not showing maybe 10 paragraphs, maybe in the mobile view. I'm showing only 3 paragraphs.
Right.
So those variations also can be done. It's pretty easy actually. If you can, again, it's interest of time. I don't want to eat up on your time, Gauri. So if I go into assets, right? Let me go back here. Create content fragment. If you have 6 you can play around with this. You create a simple content fragment. Go through this. I'm going to say demo. I'm going to add the same description. I can add the tags the way I want, or I can introduce the tags later on too. But now I'm going to go ahead and create the content. You can open it, and there's a build-up. So you can have multiple editors for the content fragment itself. I can use maybe rich text editor, a plain text, or a markdown. I can put some content here. Now I can maintain variations of that too, or apply this component to a workflow. So it's standing by itself alone. I create English language site. I can just drag and drop that in. Right here, I can go and check and save this and see the variation now. The variations are actually tied to the parent component, so it's linked together.
Is there a variant?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Interesting use case. So you've got 10 language sites or 100 territory country sites. Right? So what you're setting is the practice to maintain one site, and then user selection of their location and geolocation.
Yeah.
Implement the concept, right?
Definitely.
That reflects the URL.
I haven't tried that. I can table that and come back to here.
Sure.
So it is an extreme use case of content fragments localization standard. That's a classic use case though. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Definitely, that's a classic use case of that. Another classic use case is similar to what you said. When the licenses companies has the same formulation across different countries. Let's say is some prescriptive product in US, right? So the FDA of the United States has certain disclaimers that they need to put here. So the current FDA might be in UK, might be putting a different disclaimer. Likewise, the FDA equivalent in India or China might be putting a different disclaimer. So the same piece of content, same formulation, maybe the dosage information might change, the label information might change, the legal disclaimer might change. So that's another use case of where you can, anything, you can apply where this is content fragment created now. Yeah. Yeah, you can attach. Yeah, it's good. Basically, because any content, yeah, definitely. So I can go and put an associated content. The associated content can be an image. So I go and associated content, associate a collection of assets with it. So I go and associate the content, and what content I want to associate. Maybe associate another fragment, or maybe a collection of assets, or images, or videos I want to put along with that. Yeah. No, you replace hero component with the content fragment. And images too, it's an extreme use case. I haven't tried that use case because then I can just put one line as header, and at the time of delivery in template, I can say don't show that content text I put there, just show the associated image with that.
It's really by device recognition?
Yes. That is exactly where the variation comes in. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a good. Yeah, yeah. So, sorry, Gauri, I want to let you come in here. I have encroached a lot of your time. I was supposed to be done by, I don't know, 6. Yeah. But I hope this was helpful, though. Yeah.
You guys want to think about it, and then we'll
Sorry on the GoToMeeting? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just putting the cell phone here and yeah. Thankfully, I'm still connected. 1 hour and 7 minutes. Hey, Amit? Yeah, Amit, can you hear me?
Yes, Sethu, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. So I'm going to disconnect and pass on controls to Gauri.
Okay, I'll give it to Gauri.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
I'm going to get off the audio piece and Gauri is coming. Just bear with us for 2 minutes as we work on the transition.
Okay, so I think Gauri should have control now.
I got it. Enjoy.
So how do I